Dr. Steve Amoils. Apologize. I said, good evening, everybody. I'm Dr. Steve Amoils. Welcome to this talk. As you know, we are talking about the reverse study. This is the first study we know in the world, actually, to assess if it's possible to reverse aging with diet and medication. The principal investigators for the study will be myself and my wife, Sandi Amoils. And then the study will be run by two doctors at our office, Dr. Val Bullock and Dr. Melissa Van Tassel, and two dietitians, Jamie Sanzeri and Catherine Maddox. The study is done under the auspices of the Lindner Research Center at the Christ Hospital in Cincinnati. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we will answer them at the end. So thank you for being with us. Today is January the 23rd, 2025. This is being recorded, so if anyone misses it, it will be available to be listened to and watched on YouTube at a later date. I'd like to talk a little bit about aging before we start. We've all known that as you get older, your risk of developing illness and dying increases. This is influenced by your genes and your lifestyle. What hasn't been that apparent is that aging it dwarfs other risk factors. So as you get older, it doesn't matter whether you smoke, drink, or if you have underlying hypertension or high cholesterol. The older you get, the greater your risk of developing an illness. So in theory, if we can cut down or slow down our rate of aging, we can modify this risk and change our trajectory of health. If we do this, it can have a dramatic effect on healthcare and disease burden on this nation. So tonight, we're going to focus on what we see as critical factors as we discuss aging. This is mTOR, AMP kinase, and insulin resistance. And don't worry if you're not used to speaking in these kind of biochemical terms. I'm going to try and make it as simple as possible. So we've known that diet and lifestyle are major risk factors for how we age. The standard American diet, which we call the SAD diet, is a processed, nutrient-depleted, high-protein, high-salt, high-fat, high-sugar diet, and it's a prominent promoting factor of many of the common diseases we see in the United States today. It doesn't cause the diseases, but it's like a fuel to a flame. It just aggravates it. We have started calling these in our new book, the SAD diseases. And what are the SAD diseases? They are the neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's disease and dementia, obesity, type 2 diabetes, coronary artery disease, high cholesterol, inflammation, depression, anxiety, autoimmune disorders, irritable bowel syndrome, and a host of other prominent diseases that we see. Now, this is a busy slide, and I'm going to try and explain it easily. There are two critical enzymes involved, and they're like a teeter-totter in how they modulate our disease processes. On the one side, on the left, you see mTOR. mTOR is an enzyme process. It's called the mammalian target of rapamycin, and it senses when we have nutrients coming in, and then it's responsible for growth and storage. So we need it. We need, when we have a nutrient, to grow. But then we need to stop growing. On the other hand, we have AMP kinase. AMP kinase is activated by fasting. And when we when we have fasting or famine, what happens is our lower glucose activates this AMP kinase, and that helps us do some house cleaning in the body. We gobble up cancer cells, what we call senescent or aging cells, sometimes they call zombie cells these days. So it activates something called autophagy, where the body gobbles this up. So we should have a balance between mTOR and AMP kinase, between feasting and famine. You should have an on switch and an off switch. Unfortunately, with the constant on of the 24/7 high fat, high sugar, high protein diet, it tends to selectively activate mTOR, and we get diseases of growth and storage, which we just discussed. So mTOR was not known about until fairly recently. In 1972, on Easter Island in Chile, a a drug was discovered called rapamycin. Rapamycin was so called because it was discovered on Easter Island, which is also called Rapa Nui. And initially, it was thought to be a mycin, just like erythromycin, one of the antibiotics. And then it was found to have a lot of ability to suppress the immune system. So it was used for cardiac stents, immune suppression. It's used in kidney transplants, and it was given constantly for these. In our study, we are not giving it like that. We use it intermittently at a very low dose. On the other hand, the AMP kinase, we found that we can activate by using something called the PROLON 5-day fasting mimicking diet. We've known about this diet for a while. It has been used to reverse type 2 diabetes and for multiple health concerns. So we started looking at these two pathways, the mTOR and AMP kinase, or what we call feast and famine, right? So the way I'd like to think of it is if our genes are thousands of years old, and if we looked at our ancestors, they probably chased an animal and they ran after it, they used their muscles, and then they would kill it and eat it and have a feast. And as they got in those nutrients, they would activate mTOR and build their muscle. And then they would have a famine. They would have a time where they didn't have much food. And during that time, the body did its housekeeping. So now, as I said before, we have this constant on of mTOR. And the question is, how can we balance these two enzymes? And if we do, can they stop us aging? So can they slow aging? Can they stop us aging or help us age in place? Or even better, can they help us get younger? Can they reverse our aging? So here we have we're showing this here, that you have high protein on the left, which causes a high growth hormone. You have high sugar, which causes high insulin, and then high carbohydrates, which result in decreased AMP kinase, but they also activate other systems called P13 kinase and other protein kinases. All this results in high mTOR, and thus we have these sad diseases. So some of the other diseases we didn't talk about is insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, prediabetes and diabetes we talked about, high cholesterol, coronary artery disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, chronic kidney disease, and other neurodegenerative diseases, osteoporosis, certain cancers, depression, and so much more. All these diseases have been associated with high levels of mTOR. So the next big thing to think about is aging a normal phenomenon? We know people get old. We've always seen that. But if you go to a high school reunion, what you find is just looking around, you'll see that some of your colleagues are aging much faster than normal, and others seem to be aging slower than normal. We know some of that is just good genes, but a lot of it and most of it seems to come from lifestyle. Dr. David Sinclair, who's a professor of genetics at Harvard and an aging expert, believes that aging is an umbrella term for all other illnesses. So imagine all these other illnesses feeding into this umbrella of aging. And you can just look at someone and look at their face, assuming they haven't had any plastic surgery, and see how they're doing from an aging perspective. But The question is, can we reverse age? And the answer is yes. It's been done. Um, there are studies where aging is being reversed. And for every year that we reverse aging, we reduce mortality or our risk of dying by 7%. We also reduce morbidity or our risk of all kinds of diseases quite significantly. We have seen that people can reduce their risks by like 60 to 80%, and doing this quite quickly. So there's huge interest in this, as you can imagine. People want to stay alive for a long time. And Google and Amazon and other big companies have invested heavily in it. And there's currently an X prize for $100 million if we reverse aging 10 to 20 years in 1 year. So we know that people want to do it. People also ask me all the time, but I don't want to be old and decrepit. This is not the kind of aging we're looking at. We're looking at being 100 years old and feeling and looking like you're in your 30s or 40s. So, has this been done? It's started being done in mice. Dr. Sinclair at Harvard is able to genetically modify some of the aging genes. And what he did, he took mice and he aged them forward and gave them dementia. Then he took those same mice, he altered their genes and aged them backwards, and their dementia went away. So he was able to show that this could be done. Then he did something pretty unique. He clipped the optic nerve in mice and caused blindness. So this is something that you shouldn't be able to recover from. Then he reversed the age of these mice and restored their vision. This sounds pretty miraculous, but what the conclusion he came to is that the cells, all our cells, have a prototype of a perfect cell, and that we can activate that cell and make that cell come back to normal function. So then the question comes, are we approaching illness incorrectly? Instead of trying to treat an illness, maybe, just maybe, we should reverse age until we reverse them back to a younger age where they didn't get sick and take the illness away. So how are we going to measure your age? We measure it with an incredible new test called the TruAge Test. This test is a third generation aging clock, and it's very accurate. It's been compared to some data at Harvard where they followed 30,000 patients, where they had their blood for 30 years or more, and it correlated very highly with their data. What the test does is measures 900,000 what are called methylation marks on blood cells from a single finger prick test. So very easy to do, and it's measuring 900,000 data points. So when you go for a good physical, if your doctor does a lot of stuff, you're probably measuring 100 markers. Here you're measuring 900,000 markers, so you're about 9,000% better than the best tests we have at the moment. And what it does, it shows you your biological age as opposed to your chronological age. So your chronological age is your age in years, but your biological age is really how old you are. It also measures what is called your rate of aging. So your rate of aging is like your accelerator. It goes on and off. We don't age at a single rate all the time. Similarly, when you grow up, you see our kids go through growth spurts. They're getting bigger, but we go through aging spurts, and we age at different rates. The ideal rate, normally we age at about 1 year per year. The ideal is less than 1 year per year. So these results will show you how each organ system is aging, and you can figure out if your brain is aging much faster than your heart or your kidneys or vice versa, then you know where to focus on. What's nice about this test is that the changes can be seen as early as 12 weeks. We're going to measure the changes after 24 weeks, so we'll have more time to see. But the changes are individualized. What works for one person may not work for another. We saw this with a drug called metformin, which is a diabetes drug. And we thought that was going to help people slow aging, but we found that it didn't work in everybody. and some people it may made things worse. So we need to be able to see, and we can't do a randomized study. We need to know on each person. We also don't want to wait decades or a lifetime to see how you did. So with this study, we'll be able to see how you've done up to now, and then you'll do your intervention, and then we'll see how you do in the next 6 months. So you will be your own control, and we'll be able to know if what we did really made a change for you. So how are we going to do this? We're going in our study, we're going to use two things. One is the PROLON 5-day fasting mimicking diet. And studies have shown that if you do this diet 3 times in a year, it reverse ages you about 2.5 years per year. Our study is going to do this 6 times in 6 months. So hopefully we're going to get much better results. And as I said, the way it works is it's increasing this AMP kinase and therefore lowering your mTOR, but it's doing it intermittently. So for 5 days a month, you'll go on the diet. The next way we're going to do it is with rapamycin. So many of you have heard of rapamycin. Many of you have asked me to prescribe you rapamycin. The problem is we haven't had any data. There's certain anti-aging experts like Peter Attia, who wrote the book Outlive, who believe that rapamycin may be the drug of choice for this. The problem is, again, no data. And rapamycin has been used as an mTOR inhibitor, but on a continuous basis. So if we look at why they say that, there's a mouse study that when they gave this to mice, they lived an equivalent of about 140 years of age. There's currently an ongoing study in dogs. There are no human studies on longevity. There are obviously studies that where rapamycin has been used for diseases. In healthy patients, there was a study that was very interesting where they took elderly patients and they gave them a vaccine. So the way a vaccine works is it's stressing your immune system and you produce antibodies. Well, in children, if you give them a vaccine, they have a very robust response. They produce a lot of antibodies. As we get older, that response dampens and we don't produce as much antibodies. Well, after giving elderly people rapamycin, they produced a much better response. And so what they realized with rapamycin, it was aging their immune system back. So we want to see not only is it going to age your age, but your immune system and your cognitive system as well. We're going to use a very low dose at 6 milligrams once a week. At this dose, most people either have no side effects. The most common side effect is mouth ulcers, little aphthous ulcers you get. And we have a good option for that. We use lavender oil and just dab it on, it goes away. So we know that rapamycin inhibits mTOR and used continuously at high doses. It's used for anti-cancer therapies. It's used for organ transplants like kidney transplants. It's used in drug-eluting cardiac stents. It's used for a disease with a long name called lymphangioliomyomatosis and tuberous sclerosis. In our study, we're not using it like that. We're using it off-label. So we're going to do a low dose, intermittent weekly dose. And so we expect a much lower side effect profile. The PROLON 5-day fasting mimicking diet, as I said, is increasing AMP kinase and working on mTOR another way. It was developed by Dr. Walter Longo, who's a professor of gerontology and biological sciences and director of the Longevity Institute of USC in Los Angeles. He's also the author of the longevity diet. And Sandi and I spoke to him recently about the study. He was really excited. He gave us some good pointers to do. The PROLON diet is a plant-based diet, which allows your body to go into this fasting state without triggering the nutrient sensors that show you are being depleted. This kind of tricks your body, and this way your body doesn't lose muscle. when you fast on juice or water, you get all the same benefits, including this autophagy, where the body gobbles up these cancer cells. You also get stem cell regeneration. But on a water diet, you lose muscle mass and you get more nutrient depletion. So with the Prolon diet, it has been very well studied. It has many clinical benefits. It mimics fasting, but it allows you to eat. You do, it increases cellular rejuvenation in autophagy. It improves weight loss. It reverses type 2 diabetes. It prolongs longevity. It helps cancer. It's been shown to produce healthier looking skin. There are lots of benefits on it, and you can see more about it at prolonlife.com under science and support under the scientific articles. Um, the Prolon 5-day fasting mimicking diet is a vegan diet. It's plant-based. It comes in a box. There's no additional food required for those 5 days. The typical foods include olives, kale chips, dehydrated soup powders, which you mix with boiling water. They're herbal teas, nut bars, they're vitamin and mineral supplements, including an omega-3, and there's a proprietary glycerol mix. The glycerol mix is very interesting. It's fat, and it really fuels your body, it protects your muscles, and it reduces your appetite. So you pretty much don't feel quite hungry while you're on this diet. You can drink up to 12 ounces of black coffee a day. And the only thing to know about this diet, if you have food allergies, such as nut allergies, it's not advisable. And if you have strong food preferences, it's sometimes difficult. If you're extremely underweight, pregnant or breastfeeding, you can't do it. And again, if you're allergic to nuts, you shouldn't do it. So let's talk about this study. The study is called the REVERSE study. It's a 6-month study. It's given to you at no cost, and there's also no payment to participate. There are going to be 3 randomized arms. So once you apply and once you're accepted, you'll be randomized. I'm afraid as much as I like many people, I want to be in the study, I can't put them in any specific arm. So there'll be 12 people who will do the Prolon diet. There'll be 12 people who do rapamycin only, and then 24 people will do both together. And what we're trying to see is how much of a difference this gives to the reverse age. So what do we need to worry about? What are the side effects? Typically, when you go on a fast on the Prolon diet, most people feel pretty good. I must tell you, we've put hundreds of patients on. Most of them have done really well. Typical head things that people get when they go on a fast can be headaches, fatigue, irritability, low blood sugar, difficulty concentrating at times, and constipation. But remember, you can have coffee. You can exercise very gently. We only advise very low intensity exercise while you do Prolon. And you can lose weight, even though you're not losing muscle weight. So for people who are very thin, we have to be careful. Rapamycin, the most common side effects are aphthous ulcers or mouth sores. Some people get a little bit of heartburn, GI complaints. They may get nausea or diarrhea. Very occasionally, you can get acute abdominal pain, which it's very rare, but we worry about that. You can get, in prolonged use, people complain of edema or swelling of their ankles or extremities, dizziness and muscle aches. And in higher doses, your glucose can go up and cholesterol can go up. So who are good candidates for this? Anyone who wants to do it is really a good candidate. You have to be generally healthy. We're looking for men and women between 50 and 80 who wish to participate. We're looking for highly motivated people. We can't afford for you to drop out, because if you drop out at 3 to 4 months, we have to find someone else, and then that's going to delay the results. We really want to get these results out and available to the public. So you need to be comfortable in doing any of these arms. The PROLON diet can be challenging, and you need to know that. We have Sandy and I do this. We do it regularly. It's hundreds of patients have positively changed their lives doing it, but you need to be prepared for 5 days of really hunkering down and doing this. And on day 3, people often become ketogenic. They produce ketones, and they can get what's called a keto flu, where they feel a little uncomfortable, almost flu-like. Things to know here is there are lots of olives, and so some people tell me they can't eat olives, and this is a problem. Remember, we don't want you to drop out because you're not tolerating the diet. And then rapamycin may produce side effects. If obviously we're going to be testing people, we're going to be watching your labs throughout, and we would definitely take you off the rapamycin if we were concerned. There are hundreds, rather, there are thousands and thousands of people around the country taking rapamycin right now for anti-aging. We have looked at this on social media. We haven't seen any complaints where people have stopped because of severe medical side effects. So what are the disqualifying factors? If you feel uncertain that you won't stick to the diet or medications, then it's not a good idea to do this. If you have nut allergy, not a good idea. For those patients who have active cancer or undergoing treatment, although both of PROLON and rapamycin are anti-cancer, we don't want to interfere with your treatment. Similarly, both are good for autoimmune issues, but if you are undergoing if you have big autoimmune drugs, for the sake of the study, we are not going to accept that. Pregnancy, breastfeeding, although is a contraindication, although it's very unlikely if you're over 50 that that's a problem. If a man over 50 has a female partner under 50 that they may get pregnant, then we suggest additional caution with that. There's certain high-dose medications that will interfere with rapamycin. These include statins and verapamil. There are lots of drugs that will do that. Don't worry about it. If you apply and you put down these drugs, we will screen and let you know if you're a candidate or not. So this study is going to cover all costs. The only thing that you need to know is if you have a side effect, a medical side effect that requires medical care, hospitalization, or medication related to the side effects of the study, that will not be covered. I need to just tell you this from an ethical perspective, but having said that, we are not expecting to see that. So what is the application? Most of you were emailed an application, and on there's an application form. If otherwise, you can call our office and get it. Patients will then be screened to see if they're good candidates. Aim for Wellbeing patients are being given preference, as we already know their medical history, and we need you to be in Cincinnati. Just in case something happens, we want to be available to you. We can unfortunately not guarantee anyone of being in the study. And what we're going to do is allot male and females age 50 to 65 and then 66 to 80. We're going to allot them evenly so we have an even amount on both sides. Once you apply, we will review that and then we will contact you. So how does it work? Initially, one of our doctors will call you to discuss and tell you that you've been accepted. They will then schedule you to come in for a visit and an exam. They will then do lab tests to see if you can be approved. If so, you will then be randomized and you will be brought back at visit 2. You will see one of our dietitians. This is, in fact, the true start of the study. And at that time, you will be given the TruAge Test. You will be given 3 months of study medication, the PROLON diet, or both. Then you will come back once a month for the next 2 months or you won't come back. You can follow up by phone with our dietitian. Then you'll come back again at 3 months to see our doctor. At this point, you will repeat your labs just to make sure that everything's okay. On the next 2 months, again, you will follow up with the dietitian. And then for your last visit, you'll come in, you will see our doctor. They will repeat your TruAge test and do lab tests on you. Then about 6 weeks later, when the TruAge test comes back, they will review these with you either in person or on the phone, and you will be given your lab results for this. So this is a very exciting time for us to be able to offer this to you. So that is the end of what I have to say. I'm now going to look in the chat box and see if you have any questions. So the first question, are there any restrictions on diet during the non-fasting period? The answer is no. What we're going to do is actually check on you and see how you're doing. So we know that some people tend to eat more sugar than they should, and some people eat low sugar. Some people have better capacity to handle sugar than others. So we, in our data, we're going to look at insulin resistance. And we're going to see if insulin resistance or your ability to handle sugar makes any difference. But the answer to your question is no, there's no restriction on diet in between the PROLON. So while you're in the non-fasting, you can eat whatever you want. The next question is, can you explain what low intensity only means for exercise when you're on the PROLON diet? That what we mean by that is a walking. You could do gentle yoga. You could even do very light weights. We don't want you sweating too heavily. We don't want you, go for a 10-mile run or 5-mile run. High exertion is not what we want to do, because what happens is your glucose will be pretty low at that point. You can bottom out, you can feel very jittery, so not a good idea. The next question is there flexibility during the month when you do PROLON, or is that a fixed week every month? There's a few day flexibility, but pretty much it's going to be a fixed time. So we need that time of fasting, and then we need recovery. What happens when you fast is you go into the state where your body gobbles up all these bad cells. But then after your fast, in what is called the refeeding, especially in the first few days, your body produces a lot of stem cells. So your body's acting like a young child. It's producing a lot of stem cells that are going to make you feel young again. But we need this on a kind of a pendulum effect. We want to do it pretty regularly at the same time. And when you come in and speak to your doctor, they'll set your start date so that if you're going on vacation, or if you have an event going on, that hopefully we'll make your life as easy as possible. This is Catherine. She said, low intensity exercise generally means walking or yoga or stretching, general daily movement without intentionally elevating your heart rate for long periods. And there's no restriction on diet, which I said. Next question was, after the study, if you're on the medication, do you just stop it, or do you stay on? And is it expensive or a normal medicine cost? Good question. So we don't know how we're going to do on this. So if you get your results back and they are excellent, let's say you are 10 years younger than you when you started, and you on rapamycin, yes, of course, we would prescribe the rapamycin for you. The general cost of rapamycin is, if you get it in bulk, I think is about I may be off here, but I'd say under $50 a month. So yes, we would prescribe that for you. The next question is a restriction on exercise only during the fasting period. Yes, only during the fasting. When you're not fasting, we want you exercising. And next question, when are you planning to select participants and start the study? Tomorrow. As soon as we get, we already are expecting to have people tomorrow, and we will start sifting through the applications tomorrow. Next question is, if someone's 45 minutes from Cincinnati, are they eligible? Absolutely. Just within a reasonable drive. Unfortunately, if you're in Los Angeles or Miami, we can't accept you. But as long as you are somewhere in the local vicinity, that's fine. Next question, where do I get an application? On that same form that you have, if you scan it, there's one for application. If not, just let our office know and we will get you one. Next question is the TruAge test looking at telomeres or something else? That's a good question. Telomeres were these little hairs cells on your chromosomes. The longer they are, the better, the longer you live. The shorter they get, the quicker the quicker you age and die. The problem with telomeres is they're very difficult to measure. They have a standard deviation of 2 years, which means that they may be wrong by up to 2 years. And when we're trying to be accurate, they don't meet the cut anymore. So the TruAge test can look at telomeres. In the early studies, it did, but it really is not the main part of the test that looks at the 900,000 methylation marks is not telomeres. It's much more accurate. And that is the end of the talk. So no more questions. Thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate this. Sandi and I are very excited about this, as are all the physicians and staff here at Aim for Wellbeing. We hope to get this done, and we look forward to working with everybody who's in the group. Final question, is weight loss expected in all the groups? Typically, people lose weight on PROLON, since PROLON will be about 75% of the patients. Hopefully, they will. If you are normal weight, it tends not to make you lose weight, only if you're overweight. So that's it. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for being on the talk.
Well done, huh?